There have been days where I never want to get off because I'm playing so well, and others where no matter what I do, I just make mistake after mistake. But Fortnite demands you be playing it the best you possibly can for you to win just about any fight. If you slip up and make one mistake, it could lose you the entire engagement. So today, we're going to talk about everything that adds up to make sure you're playing more consistently, such as the evolving meta, practice, confidence, tilting, and lastly, warming up. Fortnite is an ever-evolving game, and if we go as close back as last year, the skill level is drastically different. Every week it seems like a new strategy is being developed, and if you don't jump on it and learn, you're going to be behind. And that's how Fortnite is. If you're not keeping up, you're falling behind. So sometimes you may feel like you're playing worse than you really are, but it could be the fact that everybody else is just getting better, and maybe you've neglected practicing as often as you want to. And no matter how you put it, practicing is essential to Fortnite and is required to stay on top of your game and to stay ahead of other players. The more you learn new build techniques is the more you learn about the mechanics of the game that you may have never heard about before. And this will allow you to combat certain strategies players may use against you. For example, the big thing right now that I see everyone trying to find is exploits for phasing into players' boxes. And one that has been circling around more often now is the flintlock box exploit, or jumping and hitting your head on the ramp to phase through a wall. If you've never seen either of them before, you may not be prepared for someone to fly through your wall and shotgun you in the face. But if you learned them before, you can be prepared and you can pre-trap your wall or create a new turtle to kind of counter it. And these little things add up to make sure you can read and predict what other players are doing to make sure you're not about to be crushed by someone doing something you may have never seen before. Now, if it does happen, don't tilt. Hop into a replay mode and see exactly what they did. Learn what they did so if you run into someone else attempting the same thing, you'll be prepared for round 2. And just like anything else in life, if you want to improve, practice makes perfect. The more time you spend making sure you can hit a certain edit 100% of the time, perfecting a high ground retake will help with your overall consistency. Fortnite is the most technical game that I've ever played, and those mechanics are a big fight of winning any fight you get into. So if you lack in certain aspects of editing, aiming, or building, it could affect how consistently you win fights or games. If you watch some of the more mechanically skilled players, and some that come to mind for me are Mr. Savage M, Benji Fishy, and Mongrel, those three have incredible mechanical skills, and they know how to handle situations with their edit and aim if they may not have the best loadout or are low on health or shield. Now their level of mechanical skill may take hours upon hours to accomplish and master, but having a solid foundation and not making mistakes with awkward edits or phasing through your builds can make sure you don't choke a situation, and you can use your high mechanical skill to protect yourself and go for shots where you see fit, rather than 50-50ing a fight because you keep messing up an edit. And that's what makes them so consistently good. Every time you tune into their streams, they're more than likely playing as good as always because no matter what, they have that mechanical skill to fall back on and support their consistency if their mindset isn't there. Confidence is another mind game you'll be playing with yourself, and there's a fine balance that comes along with it. And finding that balance between overconfidence and underconfidence is important. I would pair underconfidence along with panicking, and if you struggle to stay calm and make the right plays in certain situations, you could just be slightly underconfident. But some of that does come down to how comfortable you are in certain situations and how many times you've encountered something. For example, like your drop spot or countering a certain build, say like a side jump. You may know the best loot path of your drop spot or know how to counter something you've seen 100 times, but underestimating your opponent and playing overconfidently can cause you to make some silly mistakes. I have found myself doing this before. For example, I'll peek too hard and instead of getting a different angle and putting pressure to the point where they can't shoot back, I'll just take a 50-50 bloom fight and lose. And it's simply due to me feeling overconfident and feeling like I'm invincible. Now on the flip side, if you're underconfident, you're going to immediately put yourself at a disadvantage. You have to have some sort of confidence to push high ground and make the plays that you practice, because if not, you may spend your whole time sitting in a turtle and eventually they'll take a wall or you're going to have to make a play. And if you feel like they're a better player, you're not going to be able to execute what you've been practicing, and that's going to lead to you panicking and making mistakes on builds that you may have practiced a million times. So a lot of it comes down to finding the in-between. Finding that sweet spot where you feel you're always a better player, but realizing your mistakes and making sure that you remember that you're not invincible, and remember to utilize everything you practice from builds and edits, and not resorting to make the simple mistakes like me, and 50-50 bloom fighting someone. Now, as goofy as it sounds, how well you're playing could be directly affected by your mood and how you perceive a situation you may have died to. Hear me out though. If you die to something stupid and you end up tilting a little bit, you're going to carry that over into your next game, and you more than likely are not going to play like you typically would. Everybody tilts at some point. Even the best players get frustrated in certain situations. But learning to overcome and resist tilting is going to help you stop making those rash decisions in future games. Let's take a look at the World Cup qualifiers, for example. Say game 1 you loot an entire house and you get no gun and you end up dying and getting 0 points. Now sure, it's frustrating, but is tilting worth it? You still have 9 games left, and letting one game affect the rest is going to make it harder for you to succeed in your later games and do well. Now to compare it to your overall play sessions, if your first game you get on and you tilt straight away, you're not going to have fun for the rest of the night, and you're going to be annoyed because your game 1 stacks on top of another because you keep making silly mistakes because you're tilted. But if you look at exactly what you did wrong that caused you to tilt in the first place, and never place the blame on the game, and only look at it as a way of how you can improve and then fix the mistakes you made previously, it's going to help you out a lot to make sure that tilting won't be as common nor as effective in disrupting how you play. Warming up is the first step to consistency. If you don't spend at least 20 minutes just running through a couple of mini courses before hopping into a game, you're going to feel rusty, and that can have some underlying effect that you may not expect. If you're not playing great at first, you're probably going to tilt or become underconfident for the remainder of your games, and you don't want that at the start of your playing session. So I'm going to run through my warm-up routine and exactly what I do and why I do it, but I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. How do you guys warm up? What does your routine look like? Now before I even boot up Fortnite, I load up Kovacs. Now if you're on console or you don't want to spend money on Kovacs, I recommend using any aim course that you like that has tracking in it, because that's mostly what I do in Kovacs, and I highly recommend to do both at longer range and as well one of my favorites is a close range SMG tracking course where you move and as well the bot moves. I have an entire video dedicated to Kovacs and I dive in more depth to each of the courses that I use. I'll have it linked down below and at the end of the video if you want to see some more of the exact courses I do. I do want to add that when I'm warming up my aim, I don't like to rush it, and I take my time to make sure I hit my typical score before I move on to warming up my builds and edits, because the ratio of shooting to building and editing in Fortnite is heavily in favor of building and editing. So if you rush your building warm up, you're eventually going to get it warmed up after a couple of games, but you're only shooting so often, and taking a couple extra minutes to make sure I'm fully warmed up is important to me. Following aim, I like to move on to building, which I typically only spend around 15 to 20 minutes on, just touching on some of the main builds I'll use in game, such as 90s, and then comboing that into some of the high ground retakes that I typically use more often than others. Every day I warm up, I challenge myself to practice something that I normally don't use. So I'll start practicing a new high ground retake just because it's something I may not be the most comfortable with, and incorporating it into my builds that I do every day, such as 90s, will help me learn it much easier, and over the course of a couple days I'll end up getting it down rather well. Lastly, I'll run through some edit courses and some edit and build courses. I like to start with first just practicing some of my strictly edit courses on some of the harder ones that I'll use in game more than likely, such as the floor and cone, and then I'll follow up with some courses that challenge how fast I can actually edit and switching some edits around. Sometimes I'll run through a build and edit course depending on how I feel, but I recommend doing it as building and editing is much different than straight editing, as you're not just spamming your edit key. You also have to strafe and hit all of your build keys, which can get you that extra little bit of warm up. I want to quickly touch on a couple of maps that I use and that you can all use to warm up. I won't go in depth and look at everything inside of them, but all the codes will be down in the description if you're looking to use any of these. The first map I want to look at is a warm-up course that I built not too long ago. It has a free build area, edit courses, both easy and hard, and as well it has some stationary aiming and some small tracking areas. The second is an edit-only focused map that was released last week, and I love this map in particular for a couple of reasons. It has a section for awkward edits that I've never seen before, and as well, it has a huge area for a variety of edits that you may run into, and are overall great for both practicing edits and build/edits. Another area that I love about this map is the tunneling. The bots shoot at you for some extra pressure to make sure you can handle the pressure while doing tunneling in game. Lastly, we have two aim maps, one from Greasy, which has a variety of great areas focusing on different aim warm-ups. The last course is a shotgun aim course that focuses on shotgun specific training, and as well it does include an aim and edit course if you're looking to warm up your edits there as well. Thank you guys all for watching today's video. If you haven't already, make sure to go follow me over on Twitch as I'm moving my streaming setup over to there. Other than that, thank you guys all for watching today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for future tips and tricks video. And if you haven't already, check out the playlist on screen if you're looking for some more ways to elevate your game. Other than that, I'll see you guys all in the next one.